play. Now those are basic three-note triplets. In other words, three different sound sources, three different limbs, or three-note groupings. Now sometimes I'll also play them where I'll play a two-note grouping, which would be like. Now, obviously, when you hear some of those stickings on their own, they might not sound like a triplet. But when you hear them in context with the drum machine, which has a triplet feel programmed into it, you'll see how the sticking lays against the triplets, and then you'll probably hear the triplet feel. Now there you get a basic idea of two notes. I'm holding three. Is that three? Two. Now what I'll also do is single note or single strokes on each sound or drum in a triplet feel, like this. Now, if you heard some of those fills on their own, like I said earlier, they'd probably sound kind of foreign. But now if you try to play some of those fills in the context of a beat, you'll see what I mean. There you saw I incorporated one-note and two-note groupings of triplets. Now obviously you can take those triplets and go up to an infinite number of stickings or groupings. Threes, fours, fives, six, sevens, whatever you're capable of. Obviously it depends on the application and how far you want to take it. Now I'm going to give you some other examples of playing the groupings in 4, 5, and 6, and 7-note groupings for the time being. What I'll do is I'll first show you the grouping on its own. Then I'll show you in context with a drum machine, then incorporated with the drum machine and a groove, so it makes a little more sense. Now, a 4-note grouping would be something like this. Now, as you know, a triplet is 3 notes. If I play 4 notes, we have 3 notes of the triplet and 1 left over. But if I play 3 groupings of 4, we have a total of 12 notes. Now, if you mathematically subdivide that, that's the same as playing 4 groups of 3. So what I'll do is I'm going to play with the drum machine again, just the 4-note grouping fill against the triplet feel so you can see what it sounds like. Now there was just between 4 sound sources. Obviously you can mix it up in regards to how you want to place your sticks around the drum kit. For example, now there was basically 4-note groupings, sometimes between 4 sound sources, sometimes between only 3 or 2. Now, if I incorporate it with the groove, it'll make a little more sense. Okay, that was 4 notes. Now let's try going to 5. 4 or 5? 5. Now with 5, it starts getting a little tricky because 5 is an odd number, especially when you're talking about triplets. Now, triplets, 3 is an odd number as well. 5 gets a little more twisted, but it's not really as hard as it may seem at first. There again, using a drum machine is a great source because you have something that you can lock it into. Then you practice playing the grooves and placing these groupings in there, it'll really help you a lot. Now, a 5-note grouping would be something like this. Now, obviously on its own, it sounds kind of foreign. Now let's hear it with a triplet feel. Okay, there you heard it against the triplet feel. Now let's hear it with like the beat. Now obviously, I'm going to take it up to 6, which would be something like this. Play between those drums. I can play between hands and feet. 2 bass drums or this kind of stroke. You know, any type of strokes that you want to designate for your limbs is really up to you. The whole idea is to play a 6-note grouping at one time. Same thing when you get into 7s. A 7 gets a little tricky. It would be something like this. Now obviously, there again, on its own, it sounds foreign. In context with the drum machine, now, obviously, 7 sounds kind of weird, but you can probably find a place to use it once you feel comfortable with it and the flow of that triplet feel remains constant throughout it. Now, the best way to do it is obviously if you have a metronome or a drum machine, you can start by playing any combinations of groupings on their own individually, whether it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 note stickings, and then start incorporating combinations of all of them together. Now I'll try that, just playing the different groupings by themselves, then I'll go into a groove and play some of the fills, mixing them up. There I was just showing you all different groupings between 1s, 2s, 3s, 4s, 5s, 6s, 7s. Now, if I want to incorporate it as a beat, then it gets a little twisted. There you go. Now that's my take on triplets. Obviously, you could take it in your own direction. That's the whole idea of this. Get some ideas from me, steal them, put them in your pocket, walk out the door, and go do it for yourself. Oh, and don't forget, it doesn't matter whether you play single bass or double bass. The exercise applies to both types of players. So go try it out. Sometimes play double bass patterns underneath and play the figures over the top on just the snare drum or between different sound sources, such as right ride cymbal, left hand on the snare. I'm going to give you some examples. I'm going to start off real simple at first with a basic rock ostinato, basically playing quarter notes with my right hand, and I'll play the figures with my foot first, then I'm going to play the figures with my left hand, then I'm going to combine them and play it with both. I'll do it slowly, then I'll try playing them a little more up-tempo. And I'm going to move my way around the kit and show you more examples, get a little more extensive, show a little swing time ostinato, a double bass shuffle, and then some double bass stuff. And then we'll get further more involved with double bass. I'll give you some examples of how I've taken some of these ostinatos and some of these work patterns and developed not only just some drum beats, but also drum fills and passages that I've used in songs and actually have incorporated. Okay, the first example I want to show you is a basic rock ostinato. I'm basically going to play quarter notes with my right hand, and I'm going to play the figures with my right foot only. I have a drum machine that I have set up over here for 120 beats a minute. I'm going to play along to that. If you don't have a drum machine, then try starting very slowly before you try to build up to speed. Remember, try to stay even and very controlled and solid. All right, there you go. That was a very simple one. Now I'm going to do the same thing again, but this time I'm going to play just my left hand, playing the same quarter notes on the right hand. After I do that, I'm going to combine the two. Then I'll try playing it at a little faster tempo, and we'll see how it sounds. Okay, the next example I want to show is basically what we would call like a swing time thing, something like this. I'm going to take that ostinato and there again play just the figures with my foot, then my left hand, then combine the two. All right, there you go, left hand. Now I'm going to play the combination of the two, then I'll try playing it a little more bumped up so you can get a better idea of how it might sound at a higher tempo. All right, there you go. There's a little example of playing alternate right foot, left hand. Now I'm going to try playing it a little more up-tempo, without the click, just so you can get a little idea of what it might sound like. There you go. Now I'm going to try the next thing, playing a similar type swing feel, but this time I'm going to play a shuffle or double bass shuffle underneath with my feet, playing the ostinato, swing time right hand, the written figures with my left hand on the snare drum. There you go. That was a basic double bass shuffle, playing kind of a swing time thing over the top. Obviously, you can get this thing up to, you can get a cooking speed, something like this. And you can eventually go anywhere you want with it. But there's a good starting point. Okay, the next example that I want to show you is playing these written figures, there again, this time playing either 8th note or 16th notes with your feet underneath, playing the basic figures over the top, and you're going to use alternate sticking with your hands. After we develop that, we're going to move on to moving the sticks or limbs around the kit a little bit, maybe developing a kind of a groove between the right hand on the ride cymbal, left hand on the snare, or between the different toms. But I'm going to start first with just snare drum phrasing over the feet. Okay, as you can see, I was just playing the basic figures as they're written over my hands. You could start reading the page with your left hand first or your right hand first, whichever one feels more comfortable. But if you try it both ways, you'll find that you get a little bit different feeling combinations within your limbs, and it'll help develop a little more independence. The last exercise I want to show you about double bass is in answer to a question I get from a lot of people, and that is, how can I develop or start to play double bass if I've never played it before? Now, aside from using some of these exercises and playing the figures over the top of straight 8th or 16th notes, that is a great way to start as well. You can start real slow and build it up. But another way that I found that really works cool is where I incorporate, what are you doing over there? Come on over here a second. Yeah, work your way around so I can talk about my hi-hat and what I'm going to do over here. That's great. Okay, come on in a little closer. We're going to be over in this area. Great. What I want to talk about is using the hi-hat as a pulse or timekeeper. Now, many of us, when we're playing a basic beat such as this, Now, many times we'll keep our hi-hat always keeping time or the pulse continually throughout the groove, even through our fills. So I found if I incorporate that philosophy of keeping time with my left foot on the hi-hat and I just move it to a different sound source, meaning my left bass drum, and I play the same beats and grooves that I already know how to play, I come up with some really, really, really cool combinations that almost sound like double bass patterns. And if I told you to try playing some of these patterns on your own, it might sound confusing. But if you break it down and play the beats that you already do know how to play and just move the left foot to a different sound source, you'll find you come up with some really, really interesting combinations. I'll give you a quick example. I'm going to take the same pattern that we played before, or something similar. I'm going to start by playing on my hi-hat. Then you're going to see me move my foot over to the left bass drum. So you hear the difference. Then I'll move it back. I'll go between the two so you can hear how it adds like a double bass pattern. All right, you get the basic idea, right? Now, the idea with this is you can start off with any grooves, any beats that you already know how to play. The whole idea is to find a different way to play them just through sound application. Now, what you can do is after you get comfortable with playing some of these beats at a slower tempo, try bumping them up quite a bit and see what you come up with. And you'll get some great sounding licks. Check it out. Now, as you can see, I was breaking it up with different beats, but I was just taking basic drum grooves that I already know how to play and adding that left foot. And you see the possibilities are endless. So try it out for yourself. I'm sure you'll come up with some great stuff. All right, now that I've showed you some examples to apply to these written figures, I want to show you some examples of how I've taken the way I practice to these and applied them in real application to songs and drum fills. All right, the first example I want to show you is how I incorporated playing some little broken figures over the top of double bass in the solo section of the song Unholy. I did something similar in the beginning of the song Creatures of the Night when we would perform it live, and this went something like this. There again, broken phrasing over the top of the feet. Now, there was also a song that I used a really cool kind of sounding lick in a song called Hard Driver when I played with the group Badlands. And that was basically a broken pattern through the toms in the intro of the song. And then I went to a basic pattern between my toms and the snare as the backbeat once it got into the body of the song. It started something like this.